ESPN had one of the most mind-numbing, no-good, stupid, waste-of-life debates I have ever seen in my entire life today on television, and it really just ticked me off. It was between Vincent Goodwill and Alan Hahn, and this is saying a lot because ESPN has employed guys like Skip Bayless and Kendrick Perkins for a long time. Vincent Goodwill, former beat writer for multiple NBA teams. He now writes for ESPN as a senior NBA writer. Alan Hahn does radio. I wasn't too familiar with these guys before today, but it sounds like they're both associated with the Knicks. That's why they're on after the Knicks just won this championship. So Vincent Goodwill called it Larry O'Brien, the NBA championship, a participation trophy, which is one of the craziest things I've ever heard in my life because it is literally by definition 1 out of 30 teams get that per season. It is the opposite of a participation trophy. I know that's a hot button word that people like to use nowadays to create clicks, to, make people raise their eyebrows and agree with them if you just yell, everything's a participation trophy. Vincent Goodwill called the NBA championship a participation trophy because of how many different teams have won it over the last 7-8 seasons. We've seen 7 different NBA champions. So let's break down a little bit of what he talked about and why it's so asinine and stupid what Vincent Goodwill said on ESPN today. We know that ESPN tends to breed hot takes, clickbait, just spewing nonsense that gets spread all over social media, and it takes good, respected journalists, guys who worked really hard. This Vincent Goodwill guy probably worked really hard as a beat writer. He probably did good work for teams, got good insight. He's probably well-spoken, well-written, all those sorts of things. I'm not attacking Vincent Goodwill. I'm more attacking what ESPN breeds and how stupid some of their conversations become. But when they get on ESPN, guys just start saying things that you would not believe. And it's really, really bad for the discourse surrounding sports, particularly the NBA. I think it's done a lot of damage to the sport in the way that social media views, teams, players, organizations. So Vincent Goodwill started out saying that the NBA legislates parity, nowadays. Now, I don't think that that's way off mark, saying that the NBA has done a lot of things, whether it's the second apron, the way that they've done their salary cap, different restrictions as far as, trades and guys you can sign to make it difficult for teams to have those dynasties that we have seen in the past, whether that's the, Lakers, Celtics, Chicago Bulls, Pistons had a stretch, Spurs were really good for a long time, and then Warriors, Cavs, in the 2010s. The NBA has done a ton to limit a lot of that. But the examples he used were not good. He said the Knicks won the championship this season because the T-Wolves were unable to pay Karl Anthony Towns. That to me is a very, very stupid take. Good organizations are able to keep their best players. The difference is the Minnesota Timberwolves made a massive trade for Rudy Gobert, and I'm not here to slander Rudy Gobert, but they made a huge trade for Rudy Gobert and are paying him a crap ton of money. And it is very difficult to make a trade of that magnitude and hold on to 3 guys that you're paying max level dollars to and build out the rest of your roster. So yes, the Minnesota Timberwolves had to make a move there. But let's not use the Minnesota Timberwolves as the example and for a team that would have built their roster the right way if it wasn't for the NBA legislating them differently. He also said that the Oklahoma City Thunder had to get rid of James Harden. They weren't able to keep Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden, which is so stupid. So many people criticized the Oklahoma City Thunder for being cheap when they didn't keep James Harden. Since that point, we had a dynasty in the NBA in the Golden State Warriors. So don't sit here and tell me that the NBA did not allow dynasties at that point, because we literally had one after that. And in fact, we saw a little mini one with the Miami Heat bringing in 3 guys, D. Wade, Chris Bosh, and LeBron James in that same era. So that is a very, very stupid point. Makes no sense. And he ended it, this Alan Hahn guy says that the Larry O'Brien validates championships, because Vincent Goodwill said the fact that no team has repeated, no team has won a second NBA championship, none of these teams are validated. And Alan Hahn says that having that trophy on your shelf validates the championship. And Goodwill responded and said, "You mean a participation trophy?" And he said, "Because everyone gets one of those." That is one of the craziest statements I've ever heard in my entire life, saying that everyone in the NBA gets a participation trophy, or that the winner of the NBA championship gets a participation trophy at the end of the season. And again, this is what ESPN kind of breeds and creates, because now this is being shared by a bunch of different pages. Vincent Goodwill is a name that we now know and we've heard before, a guy who, I consume a lot of NBA media, a guy I hadn't heard of before. But let me go back in NBA history, because I did some research. Before this 7-year stretch that Vincent Goodwill is so upset about, let's go back and look at some of the teams that only won one NBA championship, within like a 10-year window. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Oscar Robertson, Milwaukee Bucks, pretty good basketball team. The Golden State Warriors in 1975, one championship. Washington Bullets, 1978, one championship. Seattle Supersonics, 1979, one championship. Arguably the greatest team in NBA history, certainly in the discussion for it, the Philadelphia 76ers, with Dr. J, when they added Moses Malone, who won the MVP, Finals MVP. In 1983, they went 12-1 in the playoffs. That team only won one championship. The Detroit Pistons in 2004, the Big Three Celtics in 2008, the Dallas Mavericks in 2011. I just gave a ton of examples of teams that have won one championship and are still revered and respected for what they were able to accomplish. Why are we taking something away from these organizations that have won one championship over the last 7 seasons? And the reason that it's partly so stupid is because those teams could validate validate their championship, Vincent Goodwill. There's a chance the Knicks could win another title. There's a chance the Thunder could win another title. The Boston Celtics were picked by a lot of teams to come, or a lot of media members to come out of the Eastern Conference this season. So to sit here and act like, no one's going to repeat for the next 20, what are we talking about? The Knicks just won 4 days ago. So yes, they will have an opportunity to repeat next season. The Oklahoma City Thunder got clipped in the Western Conference Finals this year. They have an opportunity to repeat. So miss me with that stupid conversation saying that no team has been able to validate it. Give them a chance to do it. Yes, the Milwaukee Bucks with Giannis are probably not going to repeat. He'll probably be on a new team. The Los Angeles Lakers with LeBron and Anthony Davis. LeBron is really old. Anthony Davis is traded. That team probably won't repeat. The Raptors, Kawhi Leonard literally left that team the following season. So yes, not every team is going to repeat, and that's okay. I just brought up a ton of examples of legendary basketball teams that have done so. What this forces you to do is be a very smart organization with your signings. You can no longer sign a guy like Bradley Beal, pay him a ton of money, re-sign Bradley Beal, pay him a ton of money, and expect your organization to be in a good spot. That's what the Wizards did. They fell apart and they really regretted it. You have to be smart about the way that you spend your money. Now, participation trophy, let's talk about some players in NBA history that would love to be holding one ring because it would change the way that we discuss them. Elgin Baylor, Charles Barkley, Karl Malone, Allen Iverson, Patrick Ewing, CP3 called CP0 by Skip Bayless for his 0 rings. James Harden, a guy who was constantly maligned. Carmelo Anthony, Steve Nash. If any of those players had one NBA championship, it would change the way that they are talked about in the NBA media, amongst players, all those sorts of things. The way that they're respected, the way that they're ranked would change dramatically with just one NBA championship. John Stockton, another guy, with just one NBA championship. So think about that. You have don't tell me that everyone gets one, because they absolutely do not. There are current players in the NBA who do not have an NBA championship. We know Donovan Mitchell, James Harden are fighting for one. A lot of organizations that have been, here are the teams without an NBA championship. I wrote a list of this down, before I hopped on here as well. The Brooklyn Nets, the Charlotte Hornets, the Indiana Pacers, Los Angeles Clippers, Memphis Grizzlies, Minnesota Timberwolves, the New Orleans Pelicans, Orlando Magic, Phoenix Suns, and the Utah Jazz. 33% of the NBA has never won an NBA championship. 33%. And you are sitting here telling me that it is a participation trophy? That is the dumbest statement I have heard in quite some time. And ESPN, they breed and they manufacture a ton of really stupid comments. It's very frustrating for us that love the sport, love the NBA, love the, listening to NBA media members who can provide real insight And again, Vincent Goodwill, maybe he's written some really good pieces. Maybe he's done some good things for ESPN, and I just haven't seen him. This is not an attack on him. It is an attack on what ESPN breeds. And it's why, you listen to, particularly for me, I felt the need to create a podcast where I told the story in the way that I feel like is truthful and not just trying to beg for clicks and beg for views, but talk about the way that I feel about the sport that is, one, decided by actually watching the games and researching the history of the league and having accurate takes. So frustrating to hear this out of Vincent Goodwill. I don't know if this will get him more time on ESPN. I don't know that we'll hear more from this. I'm sure plenty of other people will respond to it. But I just found myself really frustrated by the way that the league is covered, and I have for quite some time now. I think there's so much negativity surrounding the league. Everybody is looking for an opportunity to, criticize the modern player, criticize the modern team, downplay what they're able to accomplish, and that's a really frustrating thing. We've seen parity decrease as the history of the league has gone on. Bill Russell won 11 championships. Then we had, Michael Jordan win 6, Kareem win 6, Kobe, Tim Duncan won 5, Steph LeBron won 4, and as of late, we haven't had people winning more than 1 championship. Parity has decreased in the NBA over some time, but don't sit here and act like it's just a participation trophy now. The organizations that are winning championships have made really, really smart, intelligent moves. The New York Knicks signing Jalen Brunson on a huge discount and building their team around a guy that was undervalued, and they were highly criticized for that. Firing their coach in Tom Thibodeau and getting a guy in Mike Brown who did a great job. Trading for Karl Anthony Towns from the Timberwolves because, you see the Timberwolves maybe bleeding for money. All of those things were great moves by the New York Knicks and should not be downplayed. It very much frustrates me. That's all we got for you. If you love the NBA, make sure you take a second to subscribe. We'll be, covering NBA topics all off season, even though there's no games on. We just passed 1,400 subscribers. Appreciate y'all watching. Cyborg out.